The transport shuttle's landing clamps hit the docking bay floor with a metallic thunk that echoed through the empty space. Riley Pierce unbuckled her safety harness and stretched her arms above her head, hearing her spine pop after 3 days of travel. Behind her, something scratched against the inside of a reinforced carrier box. "Yeah, I know. You hate it in there," Riley said, grabbing the handle of the carrier. Through the ventilation holes, 2 black eyes stared back at her with what could only be described as pure judgment. The cargo door hissed open. Riley stepped onto the platform of Waypoint Helix Station, a massive research facility that orbited a dead moon somewhere in the outer band. The air smelled sterile and recycled, nothing like the dusty warmth of home. She missed the wildlife center already. A 4-armed creature in a security uniform approached her, its orange skin reflecting the harsh overhead lights. It held up one hand in the universal stop gesture, while another hand tapped at a data pad. "Name and purpose," the guard said, its voice buzzing through a translator device. "Riley Pierce, xenobiologist. I'm here for the Predator research program." The guard's eyes flickered to the carrier in her hand. "What is in the container?" "My colleague," Riley said with a straight face. The guard's translator made a confused clicking sound. It aimed a scanning device at the carrier. The device beeped twice, then displayed something that made all 4 of the guard's hands freeze. "That reading cannot be correct," the guard muttered. It scanned again. Same result. "You have brought a Class D Predator onto this station. Scraps isn't that bad once you get to know her. Class D Predators are not permitted in civilian areas. This is a research station, not a zoo." The guard's voice had risen an octave. 2 more security personnel were jogging toward them now. Riley set the carrier down carefully and pulled out a folded document from her jacket pocket. "Special dispensation from the Galactic Science Collective. Section 47, subsection 12. Emotional support animals are permitted for personnel working in high-stress research environments." The guard snatched the document, scanning it with suspicious eyes. The other 2 security officers had arrived now, hands hovering near their weapon belts. One of them, a tall reptilian with green scales, peered at the carrier. "What species is it?" the reptilian asked. "Honey badger. From Earth." All 3 guards took a step backward. "Earth?" the first guard said. "The Death World?" "That's what the address says," Riley replied. The reptilian guard bent down, trying to get a better look through the carrier's ventilation holes. A low growling sound came from inside. Then, without warning, something slammed against the carrier wall from the inside. The reptilian jumped back so fast it tripped over its own tail. From inside the carrier, Scraps made a huffing sound that Riley had learned to recognize as satisfaction. "She doesn't like people staring," Riley explained. The original guard was still reading the document, its translator working overtime. "This says the animal is for emotional support. You have a psychological condition?" "I work with dangerous predators for a living. Scraps helps me stay calm." "The predator helps you stay calm around other predators?" The guard looked like its brain was trying to process an impossible equation. "She's good at her job." Before the guard could respond, another voice cut through the conversation. "Let them through." Everyone turned. A tall, elegant creature with 4 arms and silver-white fur approached. It wore the dark blue coat of a senior researcher. 2 of its hands held data pads while the other 2 clasped behind its back. "Dr. Valesh," the first guard said quickly. "This human has brought an unauthorized predator onto the station." "I authorized it," Dr. Valesh said smoothly. Its large eyes studied Riley with obvious curiosity. "The Galactic Science Collective sent the request directly to my department. Ms. Pierce is here to help us understand predator behavior. What better way than to observe how humans interact with their own world's predators?" The guards looked uncertain. Dr. Valesh's authority clearly outranked them, but they still seemed deeply uncomfortable. "The creature will be confined to appropriate quarters?" the reptilian guard asked. "Of course," Dr. Valesh said, though Riley noticed it didn't actually promise anything specific. The guards reluctantly stepped aside. Riley picked up the carrier and followed Dr. Valesh across the docking bay toward a large corridor. Behind them, she heard the guards muttering to each other in worried tones. "Thank you for the rescue," Riley said once they were out of earshot. "No rescue necessary. Your credentials are legitimate." Dr. Valesh glanced at the carrier. "Though I admit I am curious. I have read much about Earth. They say it is the most hostile inhabited world in the known galaxy. It's got some rough neighborhoods." Riley agreed. And you brought one of its predators here as a companion? Scraps and I have an understanding. They walked through corridors filled with beings of dozens of different species. Most gave the carrier a wide berth when they passed. Some pulled out communication devices and started talking rapidly. Riley figured she'd be famous on the station within an hour. Dr. Valesh led her to a residential section with smaller corridors and dimmer lighting. These are the human-compatible quarters. Temperature, atmosphere, and gravity adjusted for your comfort. Your room is at the end. The door slid open to reveal a small but functional space. Bed, desk, bathroom unit, food preparation area. A window showed the starfield outside. I will need to see the creature eventually, Dr. Valesh said. For the records. Sure, let me get her settled first. Riley set the carrier on the floor and opened the latch. Scraps exploded out like she'd been shot from a cannon. She hit the floor running, claws scratching on the metal surface as she made a lap around the entire room in about 5 seconds. Then she stopped, sniffed the air, and immediately tried to climb the desk. Dr. Valesh had backed against the wall, all 4 hands raised defensively. Riley walked over and scooped Scraps up. The honey badger made annoyed grunting sounds but didn't resist. This is Scraps. Scraps, this is Dr. Valesh. Be polite. Scraps looked at the alien researcher. Then she yawned, showing impressive teeth. Dr. Valesh's eyes were very wide. How much does it weigh? About 12 kilograms. 12 kilograms, Dr. Valesh repeated slowly. And it is classified as Class D. Honey badgers are tough, Riley said. She set Scraps on the bed, where the animal immediately began investigating the blanket. They've got thick skin, strong jaws, and basically no fear response. Back home, they're known for fighting off lions and raiding beehives. Lions? Big cats. Apex predators where I'm from. Dr. Valesh made a note on one of its data pads. Your world is strange. You'll get used to it, Riley said. But as Scraps discovered the ventilation grate and started trying to pry it open with her claws, Riley had a feeling the station wouldn't get used to anything. Alarms screamed through Riley's quarters at what her body insisted was 3 a.m. She rolled out of bed, tangled in unfamiliar sheets, and smacked the wall panel until the noise stopped. Then she noticed the empty bed beside her. Scraps was gone. The ventilation grate lay on the floor. Screws scattered around it like evidence at a crime scene. Riley pressed her palms against her eyes and sighed deeply. Of course you did. She pulled on her uniform and boots, grabbed her data pad, and headed into the corridor. 2 maintenance workers rushed past her, talking rapidly in a language her translator couldn't quite catch. Whatever they were saying, they looked panicked. Riley followed the sound of shouting to the cafeteria 3 levels down. The doors were propped open and a small crowd had gathered outside. She pushed through to find Administrator Gorham standing in the middle of the room, his insectoid body quivering with rage. His antennae pointed straight up in what Riley had learned meant extreme agitation. Where is the human? Gorham demanded. His compound eyes swept the crowd and locked onto Riley. You! Control your animal. Riley looked past him. Scraps was on one of the long dining tables, surrounded by spilled food containers. She had something in her mouth that looked like it might have been someone's breakfast. Her snout was covered in what appeared to be purple jam. Scraps, come here, Riley called. Scraps looked at her, looked at the food, and turned her back to continue eating. That creature has contaminated 17 meal preparations, Gorham said, each word sharp and precise. It has triggered security alarms in 4 different sections. It has stolen identification badges from 2 security personnel, and now it is consuming food meant for the research staff. She was probably hungry, Riley said, walking slowly toward the table. When did you last eat, Scraps? Scraps made a satisfied grunting sound and knocked over another container. A young worker near the back of the crowd giggled. Gorham's head whipped around so fast his antennae blurred. This is not amusing. This station houses the most dangerous specimens in the galaxy. We maintain strict protocols for a reason. If one animal can bypass our security systems, what does that say about our ability to contain the actual threats? He had a point, Riley admitted silently. She reached the table and held out her hand. Come on, girl. Let's go. Scraps considered this. Then she grabbed one more piece of food in her jaws and walked over to Riley, claws clicking on the table surface. Riley picked her up, ignoring the jam that immediately transferred to her uniform. I apologize, Administrator. It won't happen again. It will not happen again because the animal will be confined or removed from this station, Gorham said. I am calling an emergency committee meeting this afternoon. You will attend? Riley nodded and carried Scraps out of the cafeteria. Behind her, she heard the maintenance workers complaining about the mess. Someone mentioned having to sterilize the entire food preparation area. Back in her quarters, Riley set Scraps in the bathroom unit and turned on the water. The honey badger made angry sounds but submitted to being cleaned. Riley had discovered years ago that Scraps actually enjoyed baths once she got used to the temperature. "You're making my life very difficult," Riley told her. Scraps sneezed water in her face. The afternoon meeting took place in a circular conference room with too many chairs and not enough windows. Riley sat between Dr. Valesh and a nervous-looking maintenance worker named Pim, who kept glancing at the carrier Riley had been forced to bring. Scraps was locked inside again, making occasional scratching sounds that echoed in the quiet room. Administrator Goram stood at the front, displaying security footage on a large screen. It showed Scraps crawling through ventilation ducts, squeezing through spaces that looked impossible, and at one point hanging upside down while trying to reach a food storage unit. As you can see, the creature has accessed 17 restricted areas in less than 24 hours, Goram said, including maintenance passages that should be impossible to enter without proper tools. Honey badgers are excellent climbers and diggers, Riley explained. And they're smart. If there's a way in, they'll find it. That is precisely the problem, Goram replied. If it can find a way in, so can potentially dangerous specimens if they ever escape containment. Actually, Dr. Valesh said, raising two of its hands, that is valuable information. We should be grateful for this demonstration of our security weaknesses. Goram's antennae twitched. You want to thank the creature for breaking our protocols? I want to learn from it, Dr. Valesh said. Earth is classified as a Class 7 death world. The fact that this relatively small predator can navigate our station so easily tells us something important about adaptation and intelligence. Another researcher, a floating jellyfish-like being in a water-filled suit, pulsed agreement. Dr. Valesh has a point. We study predators here, but most of us have never actually dealt with one outside of controlled environments. The human and her companion represent a unique opportunity. An opportunity for disaster, Goram muttered. Riley felt she should say something. Look, I understand the concern, but Scraps isn't dangerous to people unless they threaten her or me. She's just curious and food-motivated. Back on Earth, my family runs a wildlife rehabilitation center. We've worked with hundreds of animals. The key is understanding their behavior. And what does her behavior tell us? Asked the jellyfish being. That your security is designed to keep things in, not out, Riley said. Scraps found every weak point because she thinks like a predator. She's looking for food, shelter, and interesting things to investigate. Your containment fields and locked doors work great against creatures trying to escape. But something trying to get in? That's a different problem. The room fell silent. Several researchers were taking notes now. Pim raised a tentative hand. The human has a point. Last month we had a specimen that nearly breached containment by exploiting a maintenance access point. If we had thought like a predator instead of just following protocol, we might have seen it coming. Goram looked like he wanted to argue, but Dr. Valesh cut in. I propose a trial period, 1 week. Ms. Pierce will continue her work and we will monitor both her and the honey badger. If there are no serious incidents, she stays. If there are problems, we revisit the issue. The other researchers murmured agreement. Goram's antennae drooped in what Riley interpreted as defeat. Fine, 1 week. But the creature will be monitored at all times. He pointed at Riley. And you are personally responsible for any damage, theft, or chaos it causes. Understood, Riley said. After the meeting, Pim caught up with her in the corridor. He was short with soft gray fur and large eyes that suggested his species had evolved from prey animals. I meant what I said in there, Pim told her. I work in maintenance. I see the weak points every day, but nobody listens when I report them. Maybe your friend can help make this place safer. Riley smiled. She's good at finding problems. Not always good at fixing them, but definitely good at finding them. From inside the carrier, Scraps made a sound that might have been agreement. That night, Riley reinforced the ventilation grate with industrial adhesive and wedged her desk chair against it for good measure. Scraps watched these preparations with obvious judgment. Don't look at me like that. You brought this on yourself, Riley said. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if this job had been a mistake. But then she thought about Goram's comment during the meeting. about what it meant that scraps could bypass their security. Maybe the galaxy needed to see what Earth animals could do. Maybe they needed to understand that survival wasn't just about technology and protocols. Maybe they just weren't ready for honey badgers yet. Across the room, Scraps had already found a new ventilation grate to investigate. 3 weeks later, Riley stood outside containment cell 19, reading the warning label that covered most of the door. Hazard level 5. Aggressive territorial response. 3 handler injuries. Approach only with full safety protocol. This is the one? Riley asked. Dr. Valesh nodded, 2 hands clasped nervously in front of its chest while the other 2 held data pads. The specimen is from Draven Prime, a world with gravity twice what you are used to. It is a pack predator, but this one was separated from its group. Since arriving here, it has injured every handler who has attempted contact. Through the reinforced window, Riley could see the creature pacing in the far corner. It looked like someone had crossed a bear with a lizard and then made it angry. Thick scales covered its body and its eyes glowed faintly in the dim light of the cell. What kind of injuries? Riley asked. Lacerations, broken bones, 1 crushed hand, Dr. Valesh said. We need to move it to a larger containment area, but it attacks anyone who enters. Riley studied the creature's movement pattern. The pacing followed the same route every time, staying close to the back wall. Its head swung left and right at regular intervals, checking for threats. It's scared, Riley said. Scared? Dr. Valesh's tone suggested it thought Riley might be joking. That creature weighs 400 kilograms and has claws that can tear through metal. Doesn't mean it can't be scared. Riley pointed at the pacing pattern. Look how it moves. That's not aggression. That's stress. It's in an unfamiliar place, separated from its pack, and every time someone comes in, they're carrying weapons and moving like predators. Of course it attacks. It thinks it's defending itself. Dr. Valesh made a note on one of its data pads. So how would you approach it? Same way I'd approach Scraps when she's upset. No weapons, no aggressive body language. Give it space to retreat if it wants to. You will be injured, Dr. Valesh said flatly. Maybe, but I don't think so. Riley checked the environmental controls beside the door. The temperature was set low, probably to keep the creature sluggish. Can you raise the temperature 5 degrees? And lower the lights? That will make it more active. It will also make it more comfortable. Comfortable animals are less defensive. Dr. Valesh looked uncertain but adjusted the controls. Riley waited while the changes took effect. Inside the cell, the creature stopped pacing and lifted its head, tasting the warmer air. Okay, I'm going in, Riley said. Watch through the window. If it charges, don't open the door. Let it calm down first. This is inadvisable, Dr. Valesh said, but it moved to the observation window. Riley opened the door slowly, making sure the creature heard her coming. No surprises. She stepped inside and left the door open behind her, giving the creature a clear view of its escape route if it wanted one. The creature's glowing eyes fixed on her immediately. Its lips pulled back, showing rows of sharp teeth. A low rumbling sound came from its chest. Riley sat down on the floor. The creature's rumbling got louder. It shifted its weight, muscles tensing under those thick scales. But it didn't charge. You're mad, huh? Riley said in a calm voice. The creature couldn't understand her words, but tone mattered. Can't blame you. This place is weird, cold, quiet. You miss your pack. The creature took 1 step forward, then another. Riley kept perfectly still, her hands relaxed on her knees. No direct eye contact, but she tracked its movement in her peripheral vision. Every muscle in her body wanted to tense up, to prepare for an attack. She forced herself to breathe slowly. The creature came closer, close enough that Riley could smell the musky scent of its scales. It lowered its head, sniffing at her hair. Yeah, I probably smell weird too, Riley said softly. Different planet, different food. Everything's strange here. The creature circled around her, still making that rumbling sound, but quieter now, more curious than threatening. Riley remained still while it investigated her from every angle. Finally, the creature sat down about 2 meters away, still watching her but no longer tense. They stayed like that for 10 minutes. Riley didn't move. The creature gradually relaxed, its breathing becoming steadier. When Riley finally stood up slowly, the creature tracked her movement, but didn't react aggressively. She backed toward the door, keeping her movement smooth and predictable. Outside, Dr. Valesh was staring at her like she'd just performed magic. How did you do that? The researcher asked. I didn't do anything. I just stopped being a threat. Riley closed the door carefully. Give it another day to settle, then try moving it with 2 handlers instead of 4. Less overwhelming. And approach from the side, not straight on. Direct approach triggers defensive response. Dr. Valesh was typing rapidly on both data pads. This is remarkable. You had no defensive equipment, no weapons, and it simply accepted your presence. It didn't accept me. It tolerated me. There's a difference. Riley watched through the window as the creature returned to its pacing, but the pattern was less frantic now. It still doesn't trust anyone here, but at least it knows not everyone is trying to hurt it. Word spread through the station fast. By the next day, 3 other departments had requested Riley's help with difficult specimens. Administrator Gorham sent her a message that was technically approving, but read like he was suspicious of her success. Pym found her in the cafeteria during lunch, carrying a tray piled with food that looked like colorful paste. "Everyone's talking about you," Pym said, sitting down across from her. "They're calling you the animal whisperer." Riley made a face. "I hate that term. I don't whisper to them. I just pay attention to what they're already saying." "Most researchers here study animals like they're machines," Pym said. "They look at chemical responses and neural patterns, but they don't think about feelings. Your people were prey animals, right?" Riley asked. Pym nodded, his large eyes blinking slowly. "My ancestors spent millions of years hiding from predators. We only built civilization after the predators on our world went extinct. Even now, seeing creatures like that one from Draven Prime triggers instinct panic. But you work here. I work in maintenance. I fix the systems that keep the predators locked away." Pym stirred his pace thoughtfully. "You're different, though. You walk up to these creatures like they're your neighbors." "On Earth, they basically are," Riley said. "Humans evolved alongside mega-predators. We didn't wait for them to go extinct. We learned to live with them, hunt with them sometimes, avoid them other times. Made us paranoid and adaptable. Is that why you brought Scraps? Scraps keeps me honest. When you work with dangerous animals every day, it's easy to get overconfident. But Scraps reminds me that even small creatures demand respect." Riley smiled. "Plus, she's good company." As if summoned by her name, an alarm chirped on Riley's datapad. "Security alert. Unauthorized animal in Research Lab 7. Riley sighed and stood up. Speaking of Scraps, she found the honey badger in one of the research labs investigating a containment unit that held some kind of bioluminescent plant. 3 researchers stood on chairs and tables, watching nervously as Scraps pawed at the container's latch. "She cannot open that," one researcher said, though it sounded more like a prayer than a statement. Scraps popped the latch open. "Scraps, no." Riley rushed forward and scooped up the honey badger before she could stick her nose into the container. "That could be poisonous." Scraps made an irritated huffing sound and tried to wriggle free. The researcher who had spoken climbed down from the chair slowly. "How did it open a magnetic latch?" "Trial and error," Riley said. "And she's been watching people open doors all week." "Honey badgers are smart. Smart enough to bypass security systems designed to contain Class 5 specimens," the researcher said, but there was admiration in its voice now, not fear. Riley tucked Scraps under her arm. "Come on, troublemaker. Let's go find you something legal to investigate." As she left the lab, she heard one of the researchers say, "Earth must be terrifying if that is considered a small predator." Riley smiled to herself. They had no idea. The sirens started during dinner shift, a pulsing wail that meant something had gone very wrong. Riley dropped her fork and ran toward the containment section with everyone else streaming through the corridors. Her datapad was already lighting up with emergency alerts. Containment breach. Sector 7. Multiple specimens loose. Where's Scraps? Pym shouted, running beside her. "Quarters locked in," Riley said, though her stomach twisted with doubt. Scraps had been getting better at opening doors. They reached a security checkpoint where guards were directing personnel away from the affected areas. A holographic display showed the station layout with red sections marking the breach zones. At least 6 containment cells had been compromised. Dr. Valesh appeared from a side corridor, all 4 arms carrying different devices. "Riley, you should not be here." All non-security personnel are ordered to safe rooms. "What happened?" "System failure in Sector 7. The magnetic locks disengaged simultaneously." Dr. Valesh's hands trembled slightly. "We have power predators, ambush hunters, and pack animals all loose in the same section." On the holographic display, Riley watched security teams trying to corner a specimen, but the creature kept slipping past them into ventilation passages. Another team had sealed off a corridor but couldn't get close enough to use their containment equipment. "They're approaching wrong," Riley muttered, studying the movements. "Look, that one's a climber. They're trying to trap it on the ground, but it just goes up. And those pack hunters there, they're using fear responses. If security stops chasing, the specimens will find places to hide and calm down. We cannot simply leave them loose," Dr. Valesh said. Administrator Goram's voice cut through the noise. "All personnel will follow evacuation protocols. Security will handle containment." Riley looked at the display again. The breach zone included maintenance passages that connected to nearly every section of the station. If those specimens found their way into the residential areas or life support systems, the situation would get much worse. Her datapad chirped with a new alert. Her quarters. "Door breach detected. Scraps is out," Riley said, already moving. "Where are you going?" Dr. Valesh called after her. "To find my colleague." Riley ran against the flow of evacuating personnel, ducking into a maintenance stairwell that would take her toward her quarters faster. The sirens were louder here, bouncing off metal walls in disorienting echoes. She took the stairs 3 at a time. Her quarters door was indeed open, hanging at an odd angle like something had forced it. Inside, the room was empty. The ventilation grate was off again, and Riley could see scratch marks leading into the duct. "Of course you went toward the danger," Riley said to the empty room. She pulled up the station schematic on her datapad. The ventilation system connected everywhere, including Sector 7. If Scraps had gone into the ducts during the breach, she could be anywhere. Riley traced the most likely route with her finger. Scraps always moved toward food sources or interesting sounds. Right now, the most interesting sounds would be coming from the containment area, where all the commotion was happening. She grabbed her emergency kit from under the bed and headed back into the corridor. A security guard tried to stop her. "Ma'am, you need to evacuate. I'm looking for my honey badger. She's loose in the breach zone." The guard's expression shifted from stern to horrified. "The Earth predator is loose? She's not the problem right now, but she might be in danger from the other specimens." Riley pushed past. "I'm going in. I cannot allow that." "Then come with me," Riley said over her shoulder. "Either way, I'm going." The guard hesitated, then spoke into his communicator. Riley didn't wait to hear the response. She headed toward Sector 7, following the emergency lighting strips on the floor. The corridors grew quieter as she got closer. Most personnel had evacuated this section. Ahead, she could see security teams positioned behind portable barriers, weapons pointed down an empty hallway. Riley approached slowly, hands visible. A security captain saw her and made angry gestures to turn back. "I can help," Riley called out. "Civilian. Evacuate immediately." "I'm the xenobiologist working with Dr. Valesh. I've been handling your problem specimens for 3 weeks. I know their behavior patterns." The captain seemed torn between following protocol and accepting help. Before he could decide, a sound echoed from the hallway beyond the barriers. Something between a hiss and a growl. "Contact," one of the guards shouted. A creature emerged from the shadows, its crystalline body refracting the emergency lights into rainbow patterns. Riley recognized it from the specimen files. An ambush predator from a cave world, nearly invisible in low light with bladed appendages that could slice through metal. The security team raised their weapons. The creature froze, its body shifting colors to match the wall behind it. "Don't shoot," Riley said quietly. "You'll just make it defensive." "It is already defensive," the captain hissed back. "No, it's confused. Look at how it's moving. That's not attack posture. It's trying to figure out where to go." The creature took a hesitant step forward. The security team tensed. Riley stepped around the barrier before anyone could stop her. The captain made a sound of protest, but Riley was already walking toward the creature with her hands relaxed at her sides. "Easy," Riley said in a soft voice. "You're lost, huh? All these lights and sounds." Her cell was dark and quiet. The creature's body flickered through several colors. Its bladed appendages flexed but didn't strike. Riley angled her body to the side, not blocking the corridor but not directly facing the creature either, offering it a path that didn't go through her. "That way," Riley said, gesturing to a side passage. "Temperature drops by 5 degrees down that corridor. Darker too. More like home." The creature remained still for a long moment. Then it moved, flowing past Riley like liquid glass, heading down the corridor she'd indicated. Within seconds, it had disappeared into the shadows. Behind the barrier, the security team looked stunned. "How did you know it would listen?" the captain asked. "I didn't, but I knew it wanted out of here more than it wanted to fight." Riley turned to look at the holographic map on her datapad. The other specimens are the same. They're not attacking. They're escaping. If we give them paths to secure areas, they'll take them. A scream echoed from somewhere deeper in Sector 7. Human lungs, Riley recognized. Her blood went cold. "That's Pym," she said, already running. She found him backed against a wall in a maintenance access corridor, frozen in terror. 3 creatures surrounded him, low to the ground, moving in that coordinated pattern that pack hunters used. And sitting between Pym and the pack hunters, looking annoyed at the interruption, was Scraps. The honey badger made her warning sound. That distinctive huff growl that Riley knew meant she was prepared to fight. The pack hunters circled warily, trying to find an opening, but every time one moved closer, Scraps shifted position to stay between them and Pym. Riley understood immediately. The pack hunters recognized prey behavior in Pym. His fear scent probably triggered their hunting instincts. But Scraps was something they couldn't categorize. Too small to be a real threat, but too aggressive to ignore. "Scraps, good girl," Riley called out, walking forward slowly. "Pym, don't move." The pack hunters' attention shifted to Riley. They spread out, surrounding both humans now. Riley could see their muscles tensing, preparing to rush. She pulled a ration bar from her emergency kit and tossed it to the side. The nearest pack hunter's head snapped toward the movement. Riley threw another bar in a different direction. "You're hungry, not angry," Riley said. "Let me help with that." She tossed the remaining bars from her kit, scattering them across the corridor. The pack hunters broke formation, each going after food. Their coordination dissolved into individual hunger. Riley grabbed Pym's arm. "Walk slowly. Don't run." They backed away down the corridor while the pack hunters ate. Scraps waddled after them, casting one last warning look at the distracted predators. Once they were around the corner, Pym collapsed against the wall. "They were going to kill me." "Probably," Riley agreed. But Scraps had other ideas. "Where did she find you?" "I was looking for you." Then the alarm started and I got turned around. Pym looked at Scraps with new appreciation. She just appeared and stood between me and them. "Why would she do that?" Riley picked up Scraps, checking her for injuries. "She likes you, and honey badgers protect their friends. That small creature protected me from pack hunters. Honey badgers don't care about size differences," Riley said. "Just ask the lions." Riley led Pym and Scraps through the maze of corridors, following her mental map of the station layout. The emergency sirens had stopped, replaced by an eerie quiet that somehow felt worse. Her datapad showed that 5 specimens were still unaccounted for, and the biggest problem was still contained in Lab 9. "What's in Lab 9? Pym asked, noticing where Riley's attention kept going on the display. "The nightmare specimen from Hellscape Tertius," Riley said. "They've been trying to study it for 6 months, but it kills anything that comes near. The researchers use robots to feed it, and its containment failed too. The door opened, but according to sensors, it hasn't left its cell." Riley frowned at the data. "That doesn't make sense. Why would a predator stay in a cage when the door's open?" They found Dr. Valesh coordinating with security teams near the entrance to Lab 9. The researcher looked exhausted, its fur matted with stress sweat. "Riley, thank goodness you are alive. We thought you were in the breach zone." Dr. Valesh noticed Scraps tucked under Riley's arm. "And you found your companion." "She found us, actually. Saved Pym from pack hunters." Riley looked at the sealed door to Lab 9. "What's the situation?" "The specimen has not emerged. We have visual confirmation it remains in the containment cell, but the door is wide open. Security wants to seal the lab remotely, but if we do that, we cannot retrieve the specimen. It is the most valuable research subject on this station." "Can I see the video feed?" Dr. Valesh pulled up the camera view on a datapad. The cell was large and dark, designed to mimic the creature's home environment. Riley could see the massive form in the shadows, lying in what looked like rest posture, and there, sitting right in the doorway of the cell, was the reason it hadn't left. Another specimen. Something small and multi-legged from the containment unit next door. It was blocking the exit, its body language suggesting territorial defense. "The specimen is trapped by something a fraction of its size," Riley said. "It could easily kill that creature, but it's not attacking." "Perhaps it is not hungry," Dr. Valesh suggested. Or perhaps it doesn't understand what it's seeing. Riley set Scraps down carefully. That blocking creature is from a desert world, right? Operates on threat display? Correct. It inflates its body and shows bright colors to ward off predators. Riley thought about the nightmare specimen from Hellscape Tertius. The planet had no sunlight, only volcanic heat. The creatures there hunted by sound and movement in complete darkness. Bright colors would mean nothing to them. It can't interpret the threat display, Riley said. In its world, that behavior doesn't exist. So it's cautious, waiting to understand what it's dealing with. How does that help us? Pym asked. Riley looked at Scraps, who was sniffing the air with interest. We show it something it does understand. Absolutely not, Dr. Valesh said, understanding her intention immediately. That creature has killed 4 of our research drones. I cannot allow you to enter that lab. I'm not suggesting I go in alone. Riley picked up Scraps again. But I think our friend here can help. She's small, non-threatening in size, but her behavior is pure predator. The specimen might recognize that. Administrator Gorham's voice cut through the discussion. He'd arrived with a security escort, his antennae vibrating with agitation. The human wants to send her animal into the most dangerous containment unit on this station? Not send. Accompany, Riley corrected. And before you say no, think about this. That specimen represents years of research and cost millions of credits to acquire. If we seal the lab remotely, we'll need to use gas or other methods that might harm it. This way, we might be able to guide it back into containment without damage. Or you might die. The honey badger might die and the specimen might escape into the station, Gorham said. That's also possible, Riley admitted. But I don't think so. I've seen the behavioral data. That creature is an apex predator on a world where everything is trying to kill everything else. It's cautious. That's how it survived to become apex. Cautious predators can be worked with. Dr. Valesh looked at Gorham. The human has successfully handled every difficult specimen we have given her. Her methods are unorthodox but effective. Gorham's antennae drooped. If you die in there, I am not explaining it to the Galactic Science Collective. If I die in there, I won't care what you tell them, Riley said. They suited her up with a proximity alarm and a communication link. Security positioned themselves outside the lab with weapons ready. Though Riley doubted their weapons would do much against the nightmare specimen if it decided to attack. Riley approached the door to Lab 9 with Scraps under one arm. The small multi-legged creature in the doorway turned toward her. Its body inflating and colors brightening. Scraps made her unimpressed huffing sound. The small creature deflated slightly, confused by this response. Riley walked past it calmly, and after a moment of hesitation it scuttled away to find a new territory to defend. Inside the cell, Riley waited for her eyes to adjust to the darkness. The nightmare specimen was larger than she'd expected, easily 3 meters tall even in rest position. Its body was covered in overlapping plates that looked like volcanic rock, and steam rose from vents along its spine. It raised its head as Riley entered. She could feel its attention lock onto her even though it had no visible eyes. The communication link crackled with Dr. Valesh's worried voice. Riley, it is moving. I know. Stay calm, Riley said softly. She sat down on the floor, mimicking what had worked with the Draven Prime specimen. Scraps immediately climbed out of her arms and began investigating the cell, completely unconcerned with the massive predator watching them. The nightmare specimen's head tracked Scraps' movement. It made a sound like grinding stone. Riley stayed perfectly still. In her peripheral vision, she watched the specimen rise to its full height. It moved toward Scraps with surprising speed, but the honey badger just looked up at it and made an annoyed sound before returning to her investigation of an interesting crack in the floor. The specimen stopped, tilted its head, made that grinding sound again but quieter. She doesn't see you as a threat, Riley said conversationally. Probably thinks you're just another annoying thing in her way. Honey badgers are like that. The specimen circled Scraps slowly, the way a curious animal might investigate something it had never encountered before. Scraps completely ignored it, focused entirely on trying to dig at the crack in the floor. Riley understood what was happening. The specimen was an apex predator, used to everything either fleeing or fighting. But Scraps did neither. She simply existed in the same space, unconcerned. For a creature that relied on reading threat responses, Scraps was an impossible puzzle. Come on, Scraps. Let's check out the other room. Riley said, standing slowly. She walked toward the door, not looking at the specimen. Scraps followed her, claws clicking on the floor, and behind them, curious now instead of aggressive, the nightmare specimen followed too. Riley led them through the open door into the larger lab space. The specimen stopped in the doorway just as it had before, but now it was hesitation rather than confusion. Riley could see the empty containment cell that had been prepared for transfer, larger and with environmental controls that better matched its homeworld. She pointed at it. That one's better. More space. Better heat vents. The specimen's head turned toward the new cell. Riley walked to the entrance and stepped inside, letting it see the space was safe. Scraps wandered in after her, immediately finding the heat vents and settling beside one with a satisfied grunt. The specimen watched them for a long moment. Then it moved into the new cell, circling the perimeter once before settling near the far wall where the heat was strongest. Riley picked up Scraps and backed out slowly. Good choice. More comfortable in here. She closed the containment door gently. Through the reinforced window, she could see the specimen was already settling in, showing no signs of aggression. Outside the lab, the security team looked like they'd witnessed something impossible. Dr. Valesh was making rapid notes on all 4 datapads at once. That should not have worked, Gorham said, though his tone was more amazed than critical now. It worked because I brought the right negotiator, Riley said, holding up Scraps. Sometimes you don't need weapons or force. Sometimes you just need something the other predator can't figure out. Pym was smiling so wide his face might split. A honey badger just walked an apex predator into containment like it was no big deal. Honey badgers don't care about big deals, Riley said. That's their secret. 2 days after the containment breach, Riley sat in the medical bay while a robotic scanner checked her for injuries. The scan had been Administrator Gorham's idea, along with a mandatory psychological evaluation that Riley had politely declined. She felt fine. Tired, but fine. Scraps lay on the examination table beside her, allowing the veterinary specialist to check her over. The specialist, a feathered being with gentle hands, kept making fascinated chirping sounds. Her bone density is remarkable, the specialist said, and this skin thickness. I have never seen a creature this small with such physical defenses. She's built tough, Riley agreed. The question is why, Dr. Valesh said from the doorway. The researcher entered carrying datapads as always, but now they were filled with notes about the breach response. I have been studying Earth's evolutionary history. Your world is unusual, so I've heard. Dr. Valesh settled into a chair, placing the datapads carefully on a nearby table. Most inhabited worlds follow a pattern. Life develops, predators and prey reach balance. Intelligence emerges in species that learned cooperation, but Earth never reached balance. Your evolutionary pressure never stopped, Riley nodded. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts. Every time life got comfortable, something came along to shake it up. So your species evolved not for one environment, but for constant change, Dr. Valesh continued. You learned to adapt to anything, to see patterns in chaos, to remain calm under pressure because pressure was all you ever knew. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, I guess so. The specialist finished examining Scraps and declared her healthy, though it recommended against letting her fight any more pack hunters. Scraps made a sound that suggested she'd do whatever she wanted, regardless of recommendations. A message came through on Riley's datapad. Administrator Gorham requested her presence in the main conference room. When she arrived, she found a formal gathering waiting. Station leadership, senior researchers, and several people she didn't recognize wearing Galactic Science Collective insignias. Ms. Pierce, Gorham said, his tone formal but not unfriendly. Thank you for joining us. I have been reviewing the incident reports from the containment breach. Am I in trouble? On the contrary. Gorham gestured to the display screen behind him, which showed statistics and video footage from the breach. You successfully guided 6 specimens back into containment with minimal use of force. You prevented injuries to personnel, and you demonstrated handling techniques that our trained security teams could not match. One of the collective representatives spoke up. We have reviewed Dr. Valesh's reports on your work here. Your approach to xenobiology is unlike anything we have seen. The collective would like to offer you a permanent position as Chief Behavioral Specialist. Riley glanced at Dr. Valesh, who was trying to hide a smile behind 2 of its hands. That's very generous, Riley said. But I should mention that where I go, Scraps goes. We are aware, the representative said dryly. We have amended station protocols to accommodate honey badgers. Also bears, wolves, large cats, and whatever else your planet might consider an emotional support animal. Scattered laughter rippled through the room. There is one condition, Gorham added. Your honey badger discovered 17 security vulnerabilities during her exploration of the station. We need those weaknesses documented and corrected. You and she will work with our security team to test the new protocols. You want Scraps to break into things on purpose? Under controlled conditions, yes, Gorham said. If she can get through our security, we need to know about it before something more dangerous does. Riley looked down at Scraps, who sat at her feet looking innocent. You heard that? You're getting paid to cause trouble now. Scraps yawned, showing all her teeth. Over the next weeks, Riley settled into her new role. Her quarters were upgraded to a larger space with reinforced ventilation and a special exercise area for Scraps. Pym became her official assistant, learning to handle specimens using Riley's behavioral approach. Several prey species researchers came to observe, hoping to overcome their instinctive fears. Dr. Valesh published a paper titled Adaptive Intelligence in High-Pressure Evolutionary Environments that used Riley and human history as the primary case study. It became required reading at xenobiology institutes across 3 sectors. Administrator Gorham began every morning meeting by asking if Scraps had escaped overnight. Riley appreciated that he'd developed a sense of humor about it. One afternoon, Riley stood in the observation room overlooking the nightmare specimen's containment. The creature had adapted well to its new environment. Research teams could now work near it using the behavioral protocols Riley had established. Pym joined her at the window. I heard you turned down transfer offers from 4 other stations. 3 stations and 1 research vessel, Riley corrected. But yeah, I like it here. The work is interesting and I've got good people around me. The others wanted you because you're good at calming predators, Pym said. But that's not really what you do, is it? What do you mean? You don't calm them. You understand them. There's a difference. Pym watched the nightmare specimen moving through its cell. That creature isn't less dangerous now. It's just less confused. You helped it understand its environment so it doesn't have to be aggressive. Riley smiled. That's pretty insightful. I learned from watching you. And from watching Scraps. Pym glanced down at the honey badger who was investigating a maintenance panel. She's not brave because she doesn't feel fear. She just moves forward anyway. That's what Earth taught you, isn't it? To keep moving forward no matter what. Before Riley could respond, alarms chirped throughout the observation room. Not emergency sirens this time, just notification alerts. A new specimen was arriving on the station. A cooperative predator from a swamp world that previous handlers had described as unpredictable and violent. Dr. Valesh appeared in the doorway. Riley, we need your assessment on the new arrival. On my way. Riley picked up Scraps and headed toward the docking bay. Pym followed close behind. As they walked through the corridors, Riley thought about what Pym had said. Earth was a harsh world that made harsh creatures. But it also made creatures that could find comfort in strange places, form bonds across species, and face nightmares with nothing but patience and understanding. The galaxy had called her planet's inhabitants lunatics. Maybe they were right. Maybe you had to be a little crazy to look at a honey badger and see a colleague, to walk up to an apex predator and offer it a better room, to bring Earth's chaos to the ordered corridors of galactic civilization. But that chaos had saved lives during the breach. It had revealed security flaws before they became disasters. It had taught prey species researchers that they could work alongside predators without fear. Sometimes the galaxy needed a little chaos. Sometimes it needed someone who didn't know that something was impossible, so they just did it anyway. Sometimes it needed Earth. The new specimen was being unloaded when they arrived. Riley studied its body language through the transport crate, already forming theories about its behavior. Scraps sniffed the air, picking up the creature's scent. What do you think? Dr. Valesh asked. Can you work with it? Riley watched the specimen settle into a defensive posture. Stressed from travel and confused by its new surroundings. She recognized that fear. She'd seen it in every creature she'd ever helped, including the ones people called monsters. Yeah, Riley said. Give me a few days. We'll figure each other out. Scraps made her huffing sound of agreement. Dr. Valesh recorded notes on a datapad. Remarkable. The human says, we'll figure each other out, as if the specimen has equal say in the relationship. It does, Riley said simply. That's the whole point. They're not just subjects to study. They're individuals trying to survive in a strange place. Just like us, she looked around at the station. At the researchers from dozens of worlds working together. At Pym standing tall despite his prey species instincts. At Dr. Valesh documenting everything for the advancement of science. Maybe that was Earth's real gift to the galaxy. Not superior strength or fearlessness, but the understanding that survival meant cooperation. That the scariest creatures could become partners if you took time to understand them. That a human and a honey badger could face down nightmares together because that's what friends did. Scraps pulled at her jacket, wanting to get closer to the new specimen. Riley held her back gently. Not yet, girl. Let it settle first, but soon. Soon they'd walk into that containment area together. Two creatures from a death world showing the galaxy how it was done. Because honey badgers don't care about impossible odds. And neither did humans.